Ministry is beautiful. It's also very hard. Hi, I'm Natalie, and this is the Ezra Project. I think that's something that the prophet Isaiah would have understood really well. After all, he lived in a time when the northern kingdom was kind of being smashed to smithereens by Assyria, while he is working in order to try to work with the leaders in order to avoid the destruction of thousands and thousands of people, devoted his whole life to this ministry. And at the end, it is rumored that he was martyred by being sawed in half by his own king, which I doubt tickled. This upcoming weekend, we're celebrating the first Sunday of Advent, and I really challenge you to pay attention to the reading from Isaiah, because he is shouting out the pain that he is experiencing as he watches the sins of the Israelite people, for he knows that God is on the move with a harsh mercy that's going to lead to the destruction of thousands of people. He must have felt so helpless, and there's a lot of pain in his words. When your heart is consumed with a burning love for God and for his people, watching suffering becomes almost unbearable. And Isaiah lived at a time of great suffering, but more than that, he sees worse suffering and horror approaching on the horizon, and he must have felt so helpless, because all that he can do is speak out against it, and he's crying out to God, asking, why do you remain hidden and silent? Isaiah was a great leader, and I think he's articulating the pain that a lot of people, lay ministers and leaders in the church, are experiencing today, and for a variety of reasons. For instance, somebody could be struggling with dramatic conflict of personalities within a parish or ministry, and persistent, unresolved conflict either desensitizes you or wrenches at your heart, neither of which is a good option. Isaiah also spoke out about the sin of the people, and sin, especially when it's your own, is awful. For instance, there are a lot of people in the church who experience an addiction to whatever different type of sin. And when you're experiencing something where you feel so helpless and where you're caught in that black, dark struggle, you can also join his voice calling out, why, God, would you remain hidden and silent from me? Most leaders and lay ministers in the Catholic Church that I know also have big, beautiful hearts, and they love their people, and it causes real suffering when they see that the pews in the church are getting emptier and emptier every year. It's hard not to notice that dioceses are consolidating parishes because of a lack of resources and a lack of religious vocations. It's hard not to notice that the collection basket is getting emptier and emptier every year. And is it just me, or are we seeing fewer and fewer young people and young families in the pews at the church? Not to mention that the people who are staying, the people who are actually still there, so often they are struggling deeply in their personal and their family lives through addiction or divorce and the heartache. There is so much darkness in the world right now, and it is causing a lot of suffering. And it is easy when things are so dark to lose hope. And that's why I think maybe that this is the reading that's opening up Advent, because God is planning to bring light into that darkness. God isn't turning a blind eye to the obstacles and sufferings that's being experienced by the people in the world and in his church today. But he's also not up in heaven sitting on his big golden throne, anxiously chewing his fingernails because he's just so worried about what's going on. No, he has a plan. He's in control, and his plan is very good. Granted, that plan also might not make any sense to us. The Israelites were under God's will and under his plan, and it didn't turn out so hot for them at the time of the exiles. Most of them were slaughtered. They were ultimately crushed. They lost their kingdom, and they were sent into exile. But in the middle of that terrible suffering, God stayed faithful to his people. I mean, he used the Jews and diaspora in ways that I can't even talk about. They're so great and good that it would take too much time in this vlog. But just a small hint, we wouldn't have the books of Esther or Daniel if it was not for the exile and for the Israelite people who were trying to process the tragedies that they had experienced. God can take the worst and ugliest and darkest suffering and breathe life into them. The prime example being the resurrection that came after the brutal ugliness of the cross. This Advent, I would challenge you, because if you are losing hope, if you're struggling with discouragement, if you're struggling with despair, one, I know that your eyes are open to that darkness. You see that blackness, you see the evil, and you can name it. But evil is not going to win. God is going to bring light into that darkness, and his plan is going to involve a little baby. It is not going to look or come in the way that you expect it, but it's coming. Hope is coming. This Advent, confront the darkness that is dwelling inside of you and dwelling inside of this world, and cry out to him. Ask him why he's remained hidden. Ask him why he has hidden his face, because he will hear your cry. He sees your suffering. He sees the suffering of his people, and he plans to respond to it. Light is coming into the darkness because he is coming. I'm praying for you this Advent. For more reflections this Advent, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and I'll see you next week.